weighing in on the iPhone 15 and its camera, and why health is a great reason to get an Apple Watch. This is Mac Voices. Mac Voices is supported by MacVoices Magazine, our free magazine on Flipboard and on the web. Want to cut through all the noise and find out what you can do with your Apple gear? MacVoices Magazine focuses on just that, aggregating the best how-to articles and information. Get it by searching for Mac Voices in the Flipboard app or visiting macvoices.com/magazine. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this Mac Voices Live panel wraps up this session by talking about two important aspects of the iPhone 15, its camera and its weight. Then we discuss why everyone should have an Apple Watch, and the panel has some personal experiences to share. Let's go back and let the panel do the talking. Kelly, I'm going to use that as a segue to the one of the features we haven't talked about at all, and I'm kind of shocked that nobody said it up to this point, is the camera. Mm-hmm. And it is the quality of the camera, but now we have 5x zoom.
I pink puppy on my camera.
Yeah, and I love that. I also will point out there was an article 9 to 5 Mac did that some reasons that Apple wouldn't do a 10x optical zoom. I'll throw it in the chat here, and you know, I support those because it sounds like it. But if you're going to do a 10x zoom, you're not going to be able to hold the camera still sufficiently. You're going to have to put it on a tripod. 5, 6 maybe is getting to about the limit of where no matter how good the stabilization is, that you're going to be able to get an acceptable image. So, if you really need 10x zoom, then I'm sorry, you're going to have to go get a real camera, a dedicated camera and you're still probably going to have to either spend a lot of money on the stabilization capabilities of that lens or camera, or put it on a tripod.
Yep.
So, the one other thing, though, that I wanted to touch on, and I really hadn't thought about it until I gave it some thought over the weekend. This phone with my case on, with basically the same kind of case, the same manufacturer case, is notably lighter in my pocket.
I agree.
If I hold the two in my hand, it's not quite so much. In my pocket, it makes a big difference. Is there? I'm glad to hear see some nods of assent. Everybody's agreeing with that.
I'm going to compare right now. This is the 14. This is the 15, and I definitely can. Feeling both these phones, I definitely feel that this 15 is a bit lighter. I do notice it. So you're right.
Yeah. It's I wasn't sure that many. What did they say? 20, 25 grams. I don't think I'm making that up. Was the difference? And it's like, okay, big deal. Yeah, it is. It makes a noticeable difference. Noticeable difference. Ben, you said you wouldn't, if it wasn't for the USB-C and the titanium, you wouldn't be thinking of upgrading. I get the C, but why is the titanium attractive? Because of the weight thing?
Oh yeah, the weight. My 12 Pro Max is a heavy boy. Right now, for continuity camera, I actually have to have the screen housing on my MacBook propped up, or else it will take it all the way down to the floor. It's heavy in my hand. It's heavy in my pocket. And 25 grams might not seem all that much. When you're dealing with a phone-sized device, it can make a huge difference. Plus, the rigidity of titanium, they're able to design it more. So essentially, they have shifted the weight balance on it to make it feel even lighter than it is.
Interesting point. One last iOS 17 thing I'm throwing into the chat. Again, 9 to 5 Mac, but this was all over the place, that apparently some users had their privacy settings reset in iOS 17. So I don't know if who else saw this. I did not have it happen. I went and checked.
No, didn't happen to me either.
I've seen coverage of it. It did not happen to me.
Okay. So consider that a PSA, folks. If it bothers you, go check the link or just do a search on this. You'll be able to find it, and they'll guide you through the steps to go through in your settings to find out whether it was reset or to reset it yourself. Let's see. Do we have anything else? Oh, yeah. Well, okay. This also is sort of retrenching something else we said, but who was this? Apple must. Morgan Stanley and other analysts say iPhone 15 is demand is high.
It is.
Yeah, we're back to the discussion of the lines.
I think the 15 Pro Max is pushed out to at least November at this point.
And does anybody really believe that if you want a 15 Pro Max that you're going to say, nah, I'm just going to go and get an Android?
No.
If you're that far in that, like, you're debating getting a Pro Max, you're not going to just go, well, I need it today, so I'll get a Pixel. Like, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, most of the Android features I wanted back in the day, iOS has them now.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, you're going to get the people out there. So, well, Android already had it. What do I need to switch for?
Then don't.
Don't switch. Stay there.
If you like,
it's fine.
You like Android, stay there. Let people things. Like, it's fine.
More power to you. Yeah, that's why it's good to have choices.
Sure. I'd much rather, I want Android people out there, because then all the hackers are targeting them instead of me.
True.
I want them because I want Apple to have to compete. I want Google to do amazing things with Android. I want them to be creative. I want it to be awesome. Ben remembers me being really excited about new versions of Windows back in the day because I really wanted Apple to have to compete. I want somebody else to do something cool so that we can find out how Apple, instead of sitting around and going, it would be great if you could see the text of somebody's voicemail as they're leaving it for you. Instead of having to sit around and make it up, I want to see like, okay, Google put this in the new version of Android, and we really need to do something like that, that solves the same sort of problem, but in an Apple way. I really want to see that. I want to see that on iOS. I want to see that on a Mac. I want to see it on a TV. I want to see it everywhere. I always want there to be competition because it only makes everybody better. iOS doing some of the things that it does very creatively and very well makes Android better because Android has to do some of those sorts of things, or at least solve the same kinds of problems in order for people to want to have an Android phone. And the opposite is true. If Android is doing something really cool, iOS needs to figure out how to do that same sort of interacting so that everything is better. And like, I'm always kind of keeping an eye on the other stuff because I always want to know. I want to find out like what's cool and interesting and coming. And like Ben said, the stuff that I used to jailbreak my iPhone for is part of my phone now. So I don't have to, I don't have a real reason to do any of the other stuff.
Yeah. And quite frankly, if we didn't have the competition from Google, I don't think the iPhone would be anywhere near as advanced as it is today.
Agree with that statement.
It's natural. We can't help it. We perform better when we have someone to compete with a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Brian, weren't you the one earlier in the chat that was saying that you have someone that is looking at switching and you felt it was like right out of the blue?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Somebody who in my family who has been a dedicated Android user for well over a decade. After the iPhone event last week, mentioned to me just, hey, I'm thinking about switching. I'm like, really? And I was like, what all of a sudden? And for him, it was the gaming. It was that ray tracing. And something that, I do a little gaming myself, but not on a phone. And it never occurred to me as being a major driver. But he had a lot of questions for me. And so I set up a FaceTime I had to use FaceTime Link because he doesn't have an iPhone yet, but it worked. And was able to go through with him for about 2.5 hours, just going through different features of iOS and features of phones and, stuff that he was not even aware of. It was interesting talking to somebody who doesn't interact with these features on a regular basis and going through some of the different features and what stood out to him versus what stands out to me in my daily use too is very interesting. In particular, a feature that I've used for a while in its different iterations are the focus modes. And the focus modes, I almost quasi take them for granted. All the neat little granularities that you can do with geolocation of it and turning different apps on and off and who can contact you under different focus modes and all this kind of stuff. And it blew him away because he had mentioned something about say, hey, if I have any more questions, I'll text you back later on. But I don't want to wake you. I don't want to bother you if you're sleeping. I'm like, don't worry. I'm on focus mode. Just don't call me twice in a row real quick. But yeah, it was just stuff like that. He's like, well, tell me more about that. That's okay. And so it was features that, we almost take for granted. I think using them on a regular daily basis, it's kind of like, what was said earlier about upgrading 3 phones 3 generations later, you pick up on all these new features, all these new hardware and software features that, you may have missed out on for a couple of years. And it's like, wow, it's like Christmas has arrived.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah. And just to go slightly sideways from that, like you can still see the topic from here. We got a new version of WatchOS as part of that too. And just over the weekend, I was Mr. Kelly and I were out to dinner with his folks, and we were talking to them, and they were talking about like tracking health information and stuff like that, and doing more things, trying to be more active. And Mr. Kelly said, well, you should get Apple Watches. And my father-in-law's like, I haven't worn a watch forever and I'm not going to start now. And Mr. Kelly looked him square in the eye and said, you need to watch the first 5 minutes of the Apple event video. And then you tell me you don't need a watch. And I was floored because I made him watch it. I said, I just want you to watch this because he doesn't ever sit through them. He waits for me to go, here's the scoop. This is the part you need to know. And I said, you need to sit and watch the first 5 minutes, and then we'll flip through the rest. If you want to see more, I can show you the new phones. I can show you the new watch, whatever you want to check out. But you need to see the beginning. It's important. And I showed it to him. And then, so to watch him look his dad in the eye and go, you need to watch this. And then told him it's about all these people who the Apple Watch literally saved their lives, and you need to see it. And I just couldn't even believe that he was so insistent. I'm like, okay, my work here is done. Like, I'm glad it worked, because it is important. And I think there's a whole lot there that sometimes doesn't get the attention that it should. And some of that stuff just got refined in WatchOS 10. But a huge piece of that was because the beginning of that event was like, we've gotten those nice stories and, the feel good stuff from Apple occasionally, but to have like that weapons grade bit of all these people are celebrating birthdays they would not have had otherwise is huge. And it's like a really, tangible is weird because it was a streamed event, but a tangible, like visceral reaction that people had to that. Like, I saw a whole bunch of people online, when it was being broadcast live going, it is suddenly very dusty here where I am watching this video. And it's a really, really powerful story. And I think sometimes, we get lost in phones, we get lost in Macs, and the watch is a huge, huge, huge thing for Apple that really came out of nowhere because everybody kind of went, I'm going to, much like the iPad, I'm going to carry around a giant iPhone. I'm going to wear an iPhone on my arm, lol, but, it's a $1 jillion revenue item for them now, give or take. I know that's not an exact number. It's astounding. And like, just to watch somebody who like, he doesn't even wear his watch all the time, but for him to look at his parents and go, you need one and you need to wear it, and it's important because you are a person who matters to other people. And, and as a result, it would be nice if you were taking care of yourself, was just really a surprise.
And Kelly, we see naysayers pop in and say, well, Apple's now using our mortality to market to us. And okay, I get the point. But at the end of the day, those you can have promotional things that are factual and factual things that are promotional. And that video is a combination of both of them. Yeah. And because I've done the same thing, people say, well, why? I don't really need a watch. It's like, forget the watch. Just consider it a health device and a safety device, or if you fall, or if you have any significant health issues, figure out what it can do for you, talk to your doctor, see what he thinks, and then go from there.
I was going to say,
Ben,
those are.
You were,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I don't know. I thought Ben was trying to get Ben or Brian.
Go ahead.
Brian can go first.
Okay, thanks. I was just saying, you just never know what the individual caveat, the individual feature, the individual thing that pulls somebody in, and it's different. Yeah. Great points. Yeah.
Ben?
As a person with a chronic disease, the constant health tracking in this thing has been absolutely vital for both my own peace of mind, for data for my health team. I mean, quite frankly, during the 2020, 2021 years, I ended up checking this thing a lot. It helps me with fitness. It does all basically the little glanceable things that I don't have to get my iPhone out for. I mean, it's not the world beater that everybody expected it to be, but what it does do, it does very well. And it does in a way that has become so irreplaceable that I have a very visible watch tan.
Okay. So do I.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Me.
Just to circle back to the switching thing, Britt, you said you had a switching experience, or not you, but there was a switching experience that you were at or near.
Oh, yeah. My client just showed up for their meeting on Saturday and said, so I went, and I knew he was an Android user. So we talked, in my limited capacity about Android apps to use in our course of coaching. And then he showed up and he's like, so I went to go get an Android phone yesterday. I didn't know the new iPhones were coming out, but I guess I came home with one of those. So if you have any recommendations, let me know. He knew I would have recommendations.
Like, yes.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you influenced him just a little bit, that maybe you put a subliminal
I never know.
impression in
I
there?
try not to as much as I can. Like, I'm going to give somebody the real lowdown of, well, one, I don't know Android apps as well. I can't help as much with those, but this is a very tech savvy person. And so, so I said, hey, if you want to get nerdy with this and ever talk about automation, like, let's have that conversation, but we'll wait until you actually need it. But
Interesting.
Yeah.
Guys, we're almost out of time, but there's one other thing I wanted to throw in. Just it's a throwaway story, but I'll throw it into both chat rooms. That Usher will headline the 2024 Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show. Well, that was my reaction too. Good night, folks.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's a good artist. He definitely has his following. Personally, it doesn't do anything for me, but there's a lot of people that it will do something for.
Yeah, I think I personally have to make peace with the fact that we're not going to see rock bands. We're going to see almost everything, but at this point, and that appeals to a certain part of the audience, and that's fine. And I have a friend who is talking about or was talking about going to Vegas because apparently Usher was doing a residency.
Yeah.
So he's going to fly to Vegas. I wouldn't walk across the street, but hey, that's fine for me and fine for him. That's great. Yeah. He wouldn't walk across the street for things I want to see. So,
yeah.
But I don't hear a great outpouring of enthusiasm here, do I?
Well, the thing that I think is interesting about it is trying to figure out, like, who would you get, right? Like, Taylor Swift is busy, so who do you get?
Yeah. No, if the Chiefs get there.
I mean, like, because, like, not everybody listens to the same thing anymore. You know what I mean? Like, there's, it used to be like there were however many radio stations, and you could listen to those radio stations and you were hearing, a lot of the same songs that other people were hearing. And there's not a whole lot of that now, quite as much. There's not necessarily the thing that takes the world by storm, that, like, everybody has heard a song by whoever that is. Like, there's Beyonce, who's done the Super Bowl, and that's kind of it, like, for the most part. I want the Foo Fighters, but I don't think you can trust Dave Grohl with a microphone on live television.
Yeah.
That's why it's not exactly live.
Well, yeah, I know. Well, I also know they extended the delay when it was the anniversary of hip hop halftime show, which is the second greatest halftime show in the history of halftime shows. First is Prince. It's not close. Do not at me. That was the greatest halftime show. Full stop. The end. I will fight.
I agree.
You don't have to like Prince to appreciate the spectacle of the Prince halftime show. That's what I'm saying. It's on YouTube. Go look. Ask your parents. It was spectacular. Again, it is not close. But, like, they used to get really big artists because, like, there were really big artists. Everybody was listening to Michael Jackson when Michael Jackson did the halftime show, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So there's not a whole lot of that anymore, because if you're listening to stuff on Apple Music, you're not hearing whoever's on Spotify. You're not going to get, sorry, Ben, but you're not going to get Metallica. I think that would be amazing too. But I don't honestly think they would want to. I think if they were asked, they would probably just flip off whoever asks people to do halftime shows. I don't think there'd be any other reaction than that. A DJ, getting somebody that does primarily electronic music, which is kind of what Usher does, but, like, he's got live guitars and stuff, so he'll have a band out there. That's not necessarily going to be a super interesting thing for a lot of people. So, like, I don't know who's out there right now that you could get, which is not me indicting the music industry or anything for not being interesting. Like, there's so much music out there that I love that I just, like, the Venn diagram of stuff Kelly is currently listening to and stuff that would be an amazing Super Bowl halftime show is two circles. Like, that's it. But I am going to give a shout out to Brett Kennedy, who said in the chat, a Weird Al halftime show, which I would 100% be behind. Tell me where to sign. I would absolutely 100% watch the Polka halftime show. It would be spectacular.
I would, yeah, I would like that too.
Yes, give me the Amish paradise.
Yeah.
I think maybe we've ended the era where any artist doing a halftime show could be an attraction to get more people to watch the Super Bowl. How about just have a football game?
They do still have a football game. I have it on excellent authority. They're going to play
Are you sure about that?
Football game, like half of it, and then they're going to stop for Usher, and then they're going to do the other half. I mean, yeah.
I've quarter because it. Yeah, Jim, because you also have to have all the ads in there, which is the real.
Yeah, I know it's not. Yeah, it's not an actual size football game, but yeah.
Yeah. Jim, I agree with you to a point. I think the problem is we're back to the discussion of us not being the target audience. There's a whole different target audience, and it's about who's buying the records, and unfortunately they don't see us. They don't see the kind of music. I won't speak for you, Jim, but I know that Ben and I,
do you think that more people will watch the Super Bowl because Usher is doing the halftime show?
Yes.
I think there are people that at the very least, they will stick around.
I'm not saying the number is
show.
0, but I don't know.
Yes. I think there are people who don't. There are people who will watch for the commercials, and I think there are people who wouldn't have even cared about the commercials who will watch the halftime show for Usher. I do totally believe that.
I mean, I can go on YouTube and watch any dang music I want anytime. What do I care what's on the halftime show?
You're not one of those people.
It's the whole thing of being there.
I mean, if I want to watch Usher, I'm sure I can watch some Usher, like, hang up on y'all and be doing that in 30 seconds, right?
I think sometimes it's just the spectacle of how quickly they take everyone off the field, put the stage together, perform, take it apart, play football within 20 minutes.
I think it would be cool if they showed us more of that. I'd be into that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I also think whoever will use the word spectacle, it's less about the actual music performance and more about the spectacle at this stage of the game, because you don't see bands. You see these individual artists, many of which don't play their instruments. They just
is that not true about the game also?
Mm-hmm. On that note, we're going to get out of here.
Yeah.
Jim gets the last word. So I'm going to flip it around. Before Comcast shuts Brittany off, I'm going to say, Brittany Smith, thank you so much for being here. The lady who wants to walk around naked with her iPhone, or did I get that wrong?
You got that a little backwards.
Okay.
But
walk her iPhone around naked.
Okay.
And how you diagram that sentence is left.
I don't want it to be all confined all the time.
Yeah.
It's gotta be free.
Your iPhone, you don't want to be confined. No, never mind. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Britt, where can folks find you?
So you used to find me on MacVoice. I'm just teasing.
Until today.
You can find me on YouTube and TikTok. How about those guys? ADD Liberator. I'm posting not as many as last year, but a handful of iOS 17 videos, including one I need to get up tomorrow. So yeah, it's a good spot.
Great. Thanks so much. And Brittany, seriously, thank you for persevering through your Comcast issues. We're glad you were able to make it.
Thank you.
Brian Flanigan-Arthurs, the only man on the panel with the tie tonight. Where can folks connect with you?
Hey, thank you very much for having me again. Best place to find me, most active, probably Mastodon. So mastodon.cloud, Brian8944. You can also find me on X, Blue Sky, and Spoutable. Also Brian8944.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, Guimont, it's good to have you back in the fold.
Hey.
Where can folks connect with you, as if I didn't know?
Well, you get to connect with me here every Tuesday, because every time I show up, you just keep letting me in the meeting. So that's kind of on you. The rest of the time, sometimes you can find me over on In Touch with iOS with host David Ginsburg, who also continues to invite me back to be on his show for reasons I don't always understand. You can find me over at The Incomparable, where I occasionally appear on episodes of Game Show, like Low Definition, where you have to make up definitions of words. And that's always a really fun one. And various other places over at The Incomparable, where I host a podcast called I Want My MCU TV. The rest of the time, you can find me where I am Verso at mastodon.social. I don't do any of the other ones yet. And yeah, for the most part, I think that's probably about it. The rest of the time, I'm playing Pokemon with Brittany.
Thanks so much, Kelly. Ben Roethig, the man who is Monterey Senior amongst this group. Where can folks connect with you?
Well, Chuck, you can find me at Ben Roethig on your social media of choice. You can find my writings on roethig.tech. On Thursday nights, you can find me on In Touch with iOS with a Mr. David Ginsburg. One or two of you might have heard of him. You can find me on Thursdays and Fridays on the British Tech Network on the Big and Mac shows.
Thank you, Ben. Good to have you as always.
Always great to be here.
Eric, I consider any show a success if I can get a face palm out of you. And I got it. It took me a while tonight, but I got it with that last comment on Brittany and her iPhone. So thank you.
Yeah.
Where can folks connect with you, Eric?
Yeah, I can be found on Mastodon at EA Bolden at techhub.social or EA Bolden at mas.tl.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good to have you as always. Jim Ray, we know where you'll be during the Super Bowl halftime. You'll be on YouTube watching somebody else doing music videos.
I don't know. It's a spectacle.
Yeah. Where can folks connect with you?
I want to apologize for hogging the conversation tonight. I'll try to be a little more restrained next time.
We'll ask you more developer questions next time.
I just had so much to say about all the new stuff that I didn't buy and didn't install.
Oh my. Where can folks find you?
You can find me on the web at provue.com, PROVUE, and on Mastodon. I just have the one Mastodon address at ProVueJim at techhub.social.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Last but absolutely not least, that Dave guy, I think I've heard of him at some point. Oh, yeah, Ben said something about him. David Ginsburg, where can we find you? Thanks so much for being here, too.
Thanks for having me, as always. You find me at In Touch with iOS, intouchwithios.com, YouTube channel, youtube.com/intouchwithios. I'm on the Mac show on Fridays with a few folks here. Mastodon, I'm on DaveG65 at mastodon.cloud, and Chuck's going to be back on the show this Thursday, too. Thanks.
Yes, I am. It's on my calendar. It popped up today, and it's like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. My weeks are all jumbled up. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Folks, this is Mac Voices Live. We have at least this much fun every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time it is, wherever you are. You could have fun, too, in the chat room with us here on YouTube. But if you can't make it, we understand. You need to sleep if you're in the wrong time zone. So these shows do show up lightly edited as we go along. They may be a little bit delayed, but you'll still get the benefit of all the wisdom shared here, or whatever it was that was shared. I definitely want to say thank you to the chat room tonight. They were contributing a lot. I tried to pull them in a couple times, but sometimes a few comments got by. So, but always good to see you guys. Thank you so much. So we will see you next Tuesday. Set your smart speaker or whatever it is that you need now so that you get it on your calendar. As always, thanks for watching.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.